Hey everyone, it's the Nitty Professor, and today we're going to look at heritage boots and Commando soles. So I've got 5 pros and 5 cons of Commando soles for those of us who wear heritage boots for casual wear, not because we're working in a mine in 1930 or on a farm in 1910, but rather because we like them, we want comfort, we want style, and we want our boots to work well for us in urban and backyard and suburban settings and all that. So the Commando sole specifically for those kinds of environments is what we're about today. So I've got 4 pairs of boots here in front of me with Commando soles. I'm actually wearing a pair because I do like them. This first pair we're going to start with is my Wolverine 1000 Miles. This is the Axle model. They have the Vibram Commando sole. It's very hard wearing. We have a nice rough out leather, as you can tell. These are pretty well worn. They're a go-to boot in winter, and I also enjoy wearing them in summer. So this brings me to a few of the pros. Traction is a big pro for this kind of sole. So we get lots of grip, sometimes even in snow. I don't recommend wearing a Commando sole in ice, but for slush, for wet, they're really good. Also, durability. Let's look at a model that illustrates the durability for us pretty well. That is the Truman's in the Evergreen Chiha leather. This is the Truman specific Commando sole. And these babies have taken a beating. I've had these now for a couple years. We've got some embedded dog dew in there. That's nothing new. It's a common phenomenon around here. Right now we're at 5 dogs, so they keep us pretty busy. But among other things, these babies took me through the streets of Trondheim, Norway. 70 miles of walking, probably a lot of cobblestones, lots of cobblestones. Durability. These soles will outlast day night. They will outlast leather. They will outlast mealy lug. They'll outlast most anything. There's some divots and pock marks and stuff. You can even see underneath the arch of the foot where they've taken a hit, and somewhere you can tell from the heel that they've gotten a lot of wear. But guess what? They're going to still last for a very long time. Weather resistance is also a feature of these soles. They are really super tough, very tough. Shock absorption, good for uneven ground. So I really appreciated having these babies on the uneven ground in Trondheim. And a 5th pro is the utility aesthetic. That works for these babies right here. These are the lineman boots from Red Wing. Gotta cheat here for a second. $29.37. Those are the $29.37s. These are in the Hawthorne Muleskinner leather. Haven't gotten as much wear out of these yet, but they're pretty well broken in. Again, we've got the Vibram Commando sole. They're going to last for a very long time. Here's my proof of the break-in process at work. So a lot of pros, a lot of things to enjoy. What are some cons? So some cons are, and looking at these Trumans, right, they're going to pick up a lot of debris. And that is, I regularly have to, there's kind of a glare. We got some sun shining, which is kind of nice, but in any case, I think you can see what I'm talking about. Picking out rocks, picking out twigs, picking out poop, picking out mud. They're going to pick up a lot of debris, and it's like you've got your traction benefit, but one of the offsets of that is that, by gripping your mud and whatever, it's also going to pick a lot up. Same thing with, gravel, pea gravel, that kind of thing. So heaviness, these boots are going to be heavy. If I compare these boots to, for example, my leather-soled Wolverine 1000 Miles, they obviously are going to weigh less. This is another pair of Trumans. A lot of you are familiar with these. It's the dark or black cherry shrunken bison. Beautiful boots. I've finally gotten these broken into the point where I can enjoy wearing them. And some of you who were following me in the fall when I got these are probably pretty proud of me for that. So this sole, again, a lot of traction, but you know, if you're walking on cement, tile floor, that kind of thing, the traction benefit compared to the weight of the boot isn't really going to be significant. So if you're going to add on all of that weight, it'd be good to have more of a benefit. Now, if I was going to go hiking on steep hillsides with rocks in these, then yeah, the traction benefits are going to be huge. But just for casual wear in my backyard, plus the town where I live is super flat. It's just, it could hardly be flatter. Another issue that some people might find con with the Commando sole is that it's just not as dressy. So it's a little bit more limited as far as the style of clothing you could wear these boots with. Now in this case, we have an out because we've got this gorgeous leather. So I'm going to say that depending on the leather you have, why these boots look kind of dressy to me. But then you compare those with something like, again, the Wolverines, then a little bit different story. So especially in this beautiful rough out leather, which I personally love because I like rugged. I like looking like I was just working on building a treehouse, which is something that I enjoyed doing when I was young. Another con, these soles are less flexible. So I've had a lot of time to work on these boots and break them in. And I've finally gotten them to where they're gonna obey me. But comparing these to, say, with my white Main Street boots with the day-night is sort of a no-brainer. Obviously, because these babies are less flexible, they're going to be harder to break in. They're just going to take more work to break in. I mean, again, especially with a boot like this, got a double whammy because we have the very substantial sole from Truman, but we've also got a shrunken leather, and those are always going to be a little harder to break in than, for example, this leather on the Red Wings, which is just not quite as thick. So a less flexible boot is going to slow you down when you're walking. You're not going to go at a fast clip down a city street the way you would in something that's, in a day night, or even say maybe a crepe, different kinds of crepe soles. And lastly, con, they're kind of clunky, it's like overkill. Sometimes they can be noisy. Where was I walking today? I was walking down a hallway at the museum. I went to the museum, the local museum. They want to sell my books. And boy, I could really hear myself today. Like I say, I've got my Trumans on in the black rough out leather with the Commando soles. And it's like clonk, clonk, clonk. Kind of enjoyed it, I mean, it's like a acoustic experience hearing yourself and stuff like that. But sometimes, if you're in a university building or office building, you don't want to make so much noise. You don't want to be so obtrusive, maybe. So to sum up, pros would be your traction. Very good if it's wet, for example. The durability, these papers are going to last a long time. The soles aren't going to go anywhere. They're weather resistant. They can be used in everything from, drought to hail. Shock absorption, they have pretty good shock absorption just because of that thickness of the sole. And if you want to have like a utility aesthetic, like you want to just carry that vibe of I like to work and I like to be rugged, then it's hard to beat this. I remember back in the day when the Swiss hiking boots came out, like maybe in the 80s, and saw those Vibram soles were like all over the place, and I was like, yeah, I gotta have that. I want that look. So those are some 5 pros. As far as the cons, it is going to be a heavier boot than something with a day-night. Less dressy, not going to go with quite as many outfits, probably suit and tie with something like this might look a little odd, I mean, everybody can do what they want, so, I could see it, but for a lot of people, they'd be like, not too sure. Traction benefits are minimal in, concrete jungle. You might be just as well off with something that's less substantial, but still going to give you the traction. I really like a V-bar sole. I really like a flat sole. Also, they're less flexible. They're harder to break in. And lastly, they're kind of clunky. You're going to pick up some rock, etc. So I'd be curious what your experience is with Commando soles. What, like, I was looking at my collection, and I would say about maybe 12% of my boots are Commando soles. So it's definitely on the lower end of what I prefer. I've ended up with a lot of those quote-unquote mini lug soles just because of all my IRs and stuff like that. But I do have multiple boots with Dainite or leather, or now, since I started getting the mock toes, I have those crepe soles, which are a little lighter weight, and they're also still pretty grippy. So anyhow, love to know your take on the Commando soles, your experience with them, and whether you have other preferences, or whether you would wear Commando soles all day long, all night long. Hope you enjoyed this video. Appreciate, shout out to Nate for reminding me not to neglect you all. I love heritage boots, and it's hard for me to excuse buying more. So if you have more ideas for how I can recycle the 40 pairs that I have, let me know and I'll do it. Y'all take care. Bye.